We got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we get to talk about the finale for the Book of Boba Fett. We've been, waiting for this day for quite some time, about, 6 weeks now. And it has a lot in it, to say the least. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk about the episode first, and then we'll talk about our thoughts. And then I have a couple of topic questions prepared this time, so we can talk about. So we'll take a look at that. We'll try something new. So I will preface that when I go ahead and talk about the episode, I'm not going to talk about like, oh, hey, this person swung at this person, so on and so forth. We're just going to talk about like the main things that are happening, because obviously this episode has a big battle in it. So we're just going to kind of do like the main things that are happening throughout the battle, as opposed to every little individual piece, because honestly, this is something you should see. So if you want to, see the awesomeness, go see it. So we're going to start it off. This episode, we open kind of where we left off. It's kind of like the next morning from the previous episode. So at the end of episode 6, the casino blew up. And this episode opens up with Boba and Fennec checking out the casino to kind of see all the damage that has happened. And while they're there, they're kind of discussing what's their next move. What do they do in reference to the Pikes? And they kind of have a little bit of a back and forth with the biker gang that's with them as far as where to stay. Because Boba's thinking maybe we should, go back to the palace. And the biker gang is like, no, we should stay here and, show that we support the city and whatnot. So Boba gets persuaded to actually stay in Mos Espa. Then Mando shows up and tells them that they will have the people of Freetown to be able to help them out. It's to Boba's surprise that they offered to do it for free. So Boba is kind of a little bit weary on whether they're actually going to follow through with it. He's kind of questioning Mando, like, are you really sure they're going to show up? Because we really need their help. And Mando trusts them 100%. So we kind of cut over to a shot at night. So this is kind of the night of that day. So there's a lot of prepping going on Boba's end. But we see Cad Bane walking up to the Pikes, like their main headquarters, so to speak, where the leader's at. And Cad Bane is talking to them a little bit about what to do about Boba. And he learns, and us as an audience finally learns, that the Tuskens were actually taken out by the Pikes. We were led to believe that it was the biker gang that was supposedly the one of two contenders of protecting the Pikes between the bikers and the Tuskens. But actually it wasn't the bikers that killed them. It was the Pikes. So Cad Bane learns that and basically thinks to himself, I have enough information to kind of provoke Boba into drawing him out for this big battle. So we get one more thing that happens that night. That's pretty key. And we see an X-Wing fly into Mos Espa. And right away, I thought, are we actually going to get, Luke out there fighting with a lightsaber? And I can tell you, no, we do not. The X-Wing is piloted by R2-D2, and he's flying in Grogu. We see later in the episode, that Grogu has the armor that Mando left for him. So we get our answer to the question of what did he pick in the last episode, the armor or the lightsaber? And he picked the armor. So Grogu is there to be with Mando. We do not get to see Luke's point of view of that decision. So I'm curious to see if we see that later on, how he felt about that. So after that, we get to see that Boba's plan for making sure that all their bases are covered, so to speak, is to spread his people out all over the city. He's trying to make sure that they can't get surprise attacked by the Pikes. So then if one group says, oh, hey, they're over here, then, they can go focus on that area. However, spreading your people out isn't always the best thing to do. We learned that a little bit. So Boba has his troops spread out. Some of them are actually in groups, like the biker gang is a group in one spot. Some people are going off on their own, which is Chris Santon. He's just chilling out in one area. And then we got the 2 Gamorrean guards that are out in another area. So we kind of get like this sense of feeling okay, thinking that Boba is on top of things and it has all his people spread out watching. So while that's happening, Cad Bane shows up where Boba is. And again, he's still kind of at that casino area that was exploded. And Cad Bane shows up and he's trying to negotiate with Boba what to do next. And basically, we kind of get like the Star Wars version of I don't negotiate with terrorists. He kind of words it a different way towards Cad Bane, but that's essentially what he's doing. And he tells Bane that he prefers to talk to the leaders of the Pikes. He doesn't want to talk to Cad. He wants to talk to the leaders of the Pikes. Cad Bane kind of throws actually at Boba what many of the audience members have said about this show. And he says, you're getting soft in your old age. And Boba says something along the lines of, don't we all, or we all do, something like that. So kind of insinuating like, yeah, I get it that I'm getting a little soft, but we all do when we get old, kind of a thing. So I wonder if that was kind of their way of, saying this is why Boba is this way. So they don't actually do any duel or anything like that. Cad Bane kind of, insinuates it when he shows his guns, but Boba steps back for a minute.
He wanted to, but Fennec stopped him.
Yeah, he really wanted to, but Fennec is kind of like that person of kind of like a conscience for Boba, trying to keep him in line. So Bane leaves, and then we get apparently what a lot of people were anticipating, but I was still kind of shocked about it in a way. When Boba split up his people, we get an intercom saying, hey, something isn't right from the biker group. And turns out the little areas that they all went to, those were the people that Boba had talked to a long time ago saying, hey, if the Pikes get involved, please just step aside and let us do our thing. Don't pick sides. And they picked the Pikes.
They picked the wrong side.
Yeah, so they turn on everybody. And so the Pikes aren't necessarily attacking Boba's people. It's the townspeople from the different sectors. So they're actually having to fend off the different people. I think Chrysanthemum had the Trandoshans. The Gamorrean guards had the people that look like the Haunted Mask from Goosebumps. I don't know what their species is. And then the biker gang had the people, again, don't know the species, but they're the ones that the dude got his arm cut off by Kenobi in episode 4. Those people. So we have that back and forth going on. Bulba's getting caught off guard. And eventually, he sends Fennec off to go do something. We don't really know what she's heading towards Mos Eisley, which is a different town than the one that they're in. And we
know that she's going to see the head of the Pikes. We just don't really know why.
Yeah, their intentions aren't really there yet. So she leaves and she ends up saving the biker gang, which is a nice thing. But eventually what comes up is instead of Cad Bane, talking to Boba, the Pikes show up. They honor his request to talk to him. And we get this funny little interaction. The Major Domo, the Twi'lek dude that's been hanging out with Boba for quite a while, he's like, oh, you know what? I got this. I went to school for this stuff. I can talk to him. And Boba writes up on a tablet what he wants to do and what he wants this guy to tell them. And so he goes out there with the tablet, and basically Boba told them I'm not paying you anything, and he's not going to give him any wishes. And I thought we were going to get this guy blasted. I think the audience would have really liked it. I thought it would have been cool, but it doesn't happen. It does not happen. He kind of, right when you think something's about to happen, we hear the jetpacks go off, and that is Mando and Boba flying out of the casino and just ripping through the pikes. We get this really cool action sequence of the two of them really playing off of one another, taking out the pikes. Very, very cool scene that plays out. Eventually, they do get overwhelmed by the pikes. They get to a point, where they've crushed a good handful of pikes, but then another group shows up and they're just getting hammered. And then around the corner, here comes the townspeople from Freetown coming in on a speeder, and they save Mando and Boba. They take out a good chunk of the pikes. Eventually, after that happens, we see someone else that I thought was going to die. And he shows up, roaring and throwing people, as we would anticipate once we see who it is. And it's Chris Santon. And he is just looking like he's had a day, because he's been, smacked around by the Trandoshans, which we'll talk about later. He's got these pikes that are on him that he's, throwing every which way. And as he's trying to get back to the area where Mando, Boba, and the townspeople are, he's getting blasted left and right. Honestly, it looked like the scene from Lord of the Rings with Boromir when he's getting all shot up with arrows. But Chris Santon takes like 15 shots and he's still walking. I personally don't know how that happens.
Well, you could see his ankle was sideways too, so he clearly had a broken foot.
Yeah, it looked like his foot was broken at one point. And so, when he ends up walking perfectly fine later, it seems kind of odd, but we'll get to that in a little bit. All right, so he gets back. Boba's like, I owe you one. You're going to get your chance in the back to tank. We're going to get you all suited up and good to go after this is over. So you kind of see that they are bonding a little bit. They're on better terms than they were when this show first started. So they eventually turn the tides, and it looks like the Pikes are on the run. They leave, they run away, and things seem great until Mando turns on his heat vision and sees that there are droids coming. We learn later on in the episode that these droids are called Scorpion droids. At least that's what they're referred to as. And they're basically like big versions of droidicas, which are like the roly-poly-oly droids from the prequels. They're much bigger, and they have the same technology. They still have the two guns that they shoot from. Trying to get in the shot here. They still have the two guns they shoot from. They have the big bubble for a shield. And the people that are with Boba find out very quickly that those shields are impenetrable. At least it seems that way, because everything that they shoot at it just absorbs. Nothing really happens. So Boba knows that something has to happen. So eventually Boba takes off and he says, I'll be back, fend him off. So he leaves, and we kind of just get, the townspeople, the biker gang, Mando, they're all trying to figure out what to do in the meantime. And eventually they kind of split. The biker gang and the Freetown people go one way, Mando goes another. And at one point, Mando is running and he gets blasted and he falls over. He gets back up and he tries testing the shield with his darksaber and notices that doesn't work either. So we get this random occurrence because I didn't anticipate her to show up in the battle, but Pelimoto, which is that woman from the hangar that Grogu showed up towards, she sees Mando and she's like, boy, you wouldn't believe what I got for you. And, Mando ends up seeing the child, Grogu, and is happy to see him. He's kind of like, this is the wrong place, but, obviously you can't do that now. They're in the mix of things. So we kind of get that thing going on. We get some hilarious scenes from Peli where she's like screaming at her droid, trying to get it to go faster to run away from, the enemy and whatnot. She's throwing hammers at it, trying to smack it in the head. So they get like their own little section in this battle. When we go over back to the biker gang and the townspeople, they're pinned down in a section of the town, and the droid is right on top of them, blasting at the wall. There's a couple of pikes with them, and we get this interesting idea, and I say that because I want to talk about it later. We get this interesting idea that one of the biker members wants to go on the roof with a sniper rifle or a rifle of some sort and shoot from the top down. She wants to go up there and distract this thing. My thoughts would be that she'd want to try to destroy it, but it's ultimately a distraction to see what they can do. So she trades the leader of the townspeople. I'm going to call him the leader here because he's the one that always talks. She trades her little pistol for his huge rifle. Obviously, he sees he doesn't seem disappointed, but something just isn't right about swapping such a big gun for a small one, but they do it. And then the two of the biker girl and one of the townspeople go up to the roof eventually, and then they start hammering away at that droid. There's a lot of cutting back and forth between Mando and this group during this segment, but that's ultimately what's happening between the two. Once they all hope seems lost of trying to destroy the droids, and things aren't going their way, we hear a big roar, and then we see Boba come back in, just like Tony's background, coming in on his Rancor that he got probably 3 or 4 episodes ago. He's riding in, and the Rancor tests these droids. It's interesting because what we see in this episode is that these shields aren't impenetrable. The Rancor digs its nails into the front of the bubble, and we see the droid position or what do you want to call that? Directs the shields to the front because it knows it's overwhelmed by the Rancor. So the back end ends up getting red, which means it's getting weak. So while that's happening, Mando sees that and tries to test his Darksaber once again to see if it can open up. And this time it actually works, which is nice. And then we kind of see Mando and the Rancor working together to take out this droid, which ends up happening. Then they take off to go work on the other droid. Not necessarily as easy as the first one, because the Rancor is having a little bit of trouble. It's getting blasted every now and then. But ultimately, they end up taking care of that one too. So the Pikes seem to be on the run again. And who better to show up when the Pikes are on the run than Cad Bane? He's going to do some damage. Cad Bane actually takes care of the Rancor. He doesn't kill him, but he uses some fire to scare him away. It knocks Boba off the Rancor. So then the Rancor goes into another part of the town. And we get this face-off between Boba and Cad Bane. The two of them, this is the actual face-off this time because they are going to be committed to doing it. Cad Bane is obviously the better gunslinger, so he does get the upper hand on Boba as far as the shooting aspect. And Cad Bane gets Boba to the ground. He gets the gun right in his face, and at least I would assume, if Cad Bane didn't talk so much, he probably could have ended it right there. But Boba channels his inner Tusken that he learned earlier on in the season and uses his gaffy stick to overpower Cad Bane and eventually stabs him in the chest, which we'll talk about that in a little bit too. That's one of our topics. After that battle, most of it is heading towards an end with the Pikes, but now they have a Rancor on the loose that's having an issue. He's tearing through the town, and the townspeople don't know how to stop him. He actually throws a speeder at the townspeople at one point.
They wouldn't stop shooting at him.
Yeah, which is funny because Mando is like, "Stop it! You're scaring it." And then we get this King Kong moment with the Rancor when he walks up there, which is funny because, Mando goes up there with the jetpack and it just all works together just like King Kong did. It's a flying things around the beast. But Mando is essentially shooting at the Rancor a couple of times too, but more in self-defense. It's not like trying to kill it or scare it kind of a deal. But Mando isn't able to stop the Rancor. This little guy, Grogu, walks out and uses a force power that I'm not quite sure we've seen before, or maybe it's a force power we know of used in a different way. But basically, Grogu put it to sleep. So the Rancor fell asleep, and then that took a lot of energy to do. So Grogu decides to snuggle up with the Rancor and take a little nap.
So cute.
Yeah, it was an interesting.
I thought that was reminiscent of Mando season 2, where he made that beast chill out.
I don't remember that.
Well, he didn't.
It was like a whole episode. It was the Freetown episode, I thought.
Are you talking about when Boba was, or not Boba? I'm sorry, Mando was trying to get the egg?
Yes, I think.
Because he didn't put it to sleep. He just stopped it midair.
Yeah.
Oh.
So there was another part that I didn't mention, so I can mention it here. There was also Mando got bettered or bested, if that's the word, not only by the Rancor, but he also got pinned down by a droid. And Grogu did the same thing there, where he stopped the droid. I felt like that one was very similar to the one that you're referencing, because the droid he actually killed and took out, whereas the Rancor he just put to sleep. But yeah, I could very well see that both of those are like callbacks to season 1. So once the Rancor goes to sleep, everything is great. We kind of cut to actually, before we get there, then we cut to the Pikes, the leaders. They're kind of in their little hut, and they're discussing what to do next. The leader of the Pikes is saying, "Oh, we're just gonna dip," and all the people from the different sectors are like, "Hey, we had people die too. You can't just do this." And we get some interesting things happening in this scene, and what I mean by that is, so someone gets shot and killed, and then they're like kind of like on alert and everything, like what's going on, and all of them get killed. One of them gets stabbed. One of them gets choked by a cable.
The mayor.
Yeah, the mayor. And so I find it interesting because it seemed a little darker for Disney. I thought it was going to be Boba. It wasn't. It was Fennec. That's why Fennec went to go see these leaders. She just straight up killed them, didn't talk to them one bit, just took them out. So that wraps up the battle, and it wraps up taking care of the leaders of the Pikes and their affiliations with the different sectors. So then we kind of cut to the town picking up the pieces. They're trying to put their city back together. Everybody is bowing to Boba, trying to say thank you for what he did. We're going to talk about that, something that they actually talk about there in a second too. But basically everything is great. Everything is good. Boba and Fennec kind of have this exchange of Boba is like, are we really cut out for this? And Fennec is, well, if not us, then who? And so they kind of have this uncertainty going on there. We get a little fun moment with Santon and the biker gang. And then Mando takes off. We get this little father-son kind of thing going on there where Grogu keeps banging on the window saying, push the button. He's not verbally saying it, but that's what he's trying to get him to do. And then Mando finally caves in and says, okay, one more time. And then they blast off into hyperspace because Grogu loves the thrill of light speed. The credits roll, and then there's an after credits scene. Just like Mando season 2 at the very end, there is an after credits scene here. And what this is when Boba and Fennec are walking through the streets. Fennec mentions to Boba, well, why don't you go in the back to tank for your arm if it hurts so bad, kind of a deal. And he says, it's being used. I thought it was Chrysanthemum because he mentioned in the battle that Chrysanthemum could take a soaking, but he was right there with Boba and Fennec. And we get the surprise. The Marshal is actually in the back to tank from Freetown. I don't know how to quite interpret what this means because I feel like if you're a dead person, you wouldn't be in the back to tank. But the guy that brought Fennec back, the modder, if you want to call him that does all the cool bio or bionic modifications to people, he's going to do that to the Marshal, just like he did the biker gang and Fennec. So I don't know if he's dead. I'm assuming he's alive, just barely. And then the modifications are going to help him be A-okay. So that's where we are left at the end of the episode. Quite a bit happened. So, Tony, what did you think of the episode?
Okay, so I think the way this episode was executed is kind of indicative of what I think the whole season was like. In that, up to this point, I have been positive about the show, and I stand by what I've said, because I kind of let it go, so to speak, as just kind of pulpy Star Warsy fun. And that's kind of how I feel about this episode as well. I'm not gonna lie, it's wasn't the most eloquently structured, well-flowing final battle I've ever seen. There are some things that I've heard online that I didn't connect at the time necessarily, but things that were kind of pointed out that I was kind of like, oh yeah, I guess maybe that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I ultimately had fun with it. It's a final battle in Star Wars, and there's fighting and action and all that stuff. So that's really fun, man. Boba Fett riding a Rancor, stuff like that. So all that stuff is fun. I liked the stuff with Boba and Mando and all that good stuff. Enjoyed all of it. And I'm because of the way I'm looking at the episode is just fun. I can kind of overlook some of the, plot holes basically. And I think that also kind of carries into my overall thoughts on the season, is that if you look at it as just some fun Star Wars, you'll enjoy it. But I'm going to bring some negativity in here. I'm sorry. But this, I just can't ignore it, especially being a film fan. This was not the strongest Star Wars show I have seen.
I think that's a fair point, and to kind of back you up, I have a couple of things too, so don't worry. You're not the only one.
Okay. Yeah. So there were some we'll say questionable decisions in this series, but I ultimately had fun with it. I do agree with some of the criticisms, and I straight up don't agree with some of the other ones. But I enjoyed this episode. I felt emotion. I was into it with the battle. I won't go into all the list of moments because that will take a while. But I felt genuine emotion at times and all that stuff. So it made me feel that it's good art. But kind of I say all that with kind of an asterisk on it. So
nice.
That's kind of a nutshell.
What do you think, Sarah?
I pretty much loved it. I wouldn't say a 10 out of 10 by any means, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it. I will admit, you guys were right. The battle did happen this episode.
Yes.
So props to you guys. I didn't think it was going to happen. I feel like the episode at least to me, I liked the flow of it. There's some nitpicky things here or there that I wasn't really a fan of or that didn't quite make sense that I caught maybe the second time around or after me and Jeremy discussed the episode and watching it the second time. Then I kind of picked up on it and was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't really like this or whatever. But first watch through, I was just so immersed in the Star Wars universe that I thought it was pretty enjoyable. I'm very curious to see what happens to the Marshal in terms of, just how hurt he is. I think it's interesting that they brought in the modder expert, if you will. So I thought that was pretty cool. Of course, love seeing Grogu and what was the lady's name?
Pelimoto.
Or
Pelimoto?
Pelimoto, I think. She's awesome.
Miss Moto.
So just seeing her kooky self, especially with the mayor's assistant, the Twilight guy, because she pokes fun at him too, and hearing the joke that it wasn't a joke, I guess, but what Boba made him say to the Pikes of what was it? It was like the Dune Sea will once again flourish with flowers and will be
fertilized
with basically the remains of your guys' bodies. So just knowing that Boba's making him say that, I loved it. It was just
that was like straight up from The Godfather.
I haven't seen that, so to me, I was brand new, I guess. Maybe it wouldn't be as special if you've heard that before, but I like it.
No, I mean that in a good way.
Okay. Either way. That's it in a nutshell. I don't want to get into too many details because I know you've got talking points and whatnot, so I'm sure we'll get into some of them there too.
Cool. Yeah. I will say straight up, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was pretty cool. But once again, it's the end of the line for season 1, so we have to be a little more particular here. I will start with some of the things that I liked. I liked a lot of the really small things. One of them that I enjoyed was when the biker gang was pinned down and Fennec saved them. And then Fennec, came down, did her little parkour thing, and then was hopping on her speeder. The girl from the group said, "Thank you." And then Fennec was like, "Manners, I like it." So it's kind of a cool callback and, bringing the biker group's attitudes full circle to respect, which is what Boba is wanting. So that was pretty cool to kind of hear. The person I enjoyed the most in this episode was Pelimoto. She was hilarious. At one point when they were running from the droids, her and Mando got blasted or something, and so they're going forward and she loses a tooth. That was pretty hilarious. I was wondering if
she just spit it out with such force.
It made me wonder if it was almost a whoopsie and they're like, "That was awesome, let's go with it," kind of a thing. But she's just so funny with the way she handles herself. I was talking to Sarah before we filmed, and I'm like, I wonder if I like her so much because she's like the sass of Leia, but the confidence of Han Solo. She's kind of like a mix of those two characters, and she's just hilarious. I love that character. Another thing that I really liked was that they were more open to gruesomeness in this episode because I feel like they kind of needed it in a way. One of the biggest complaints about the Boba show is that it's not Boba, it's not him. And there were some things in this episode that were more less Disney-ified, if that's what you want to call it. At one point, we see the Rancor eat somebody, which was really cool.
I loved that.
Almost ate Mando, but not quite. But we did see him eat a pike, which was really cool. We saw the mayor get strangled to death by a rope, which was a little bit different. We also saw Cad Bane getting stabbed in the chest. So we had a whole bunch of different things that were actually on screen that were a little more pushing the violence, if we want to call it that. So I think it was cool to see a little bit more of that and not just like off screen or implied type stuff, or just ignoring it altogether. Some of the things that I disliked, I felt like the biker group stuff, just like Tony kind of said, this was almost like a reflection of the whole series. And I felt like as the series went through, probably the weakest part was the biker group. And I feel like it played the same role here in this episode. It seemed like whenever they were on screen, it was probably the weaker of the points of the battles. Especially in particular, the part where they're pinned down and the one girl wants to go up and shoot from above. It really seemed out of place. It seemed like it wasn't going to really help much. But again, I could be nitpicking there.
Don't forget the style move. Style points.
Oh, yeah, the spin.
When Chris Santon was, they were trying to help him and they're like, oh, there's people coming. And so the one dude with the eye thing does like a 360 and then starts blasting. It has
I got you.
Yeah, nothing to do with like heading for cover. It's just parkour kind of a thing.
Spin real quick.
Yeah, it seemed out of place to me, but it is what it is. My biggest nitpick, which was I saw it when we first watched, and I thought maybe I'm just too tired because we, watched at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then I watched it again the next day, and I watched it today, and I still feel the same way about this. When the Major Domo goes out and he, talks to everybody, and it seems like he's going to get killed. When Boba and Mando jetpack out, and they're flying around in their jetpacks, this is going to sound terrible, but it looked like Disney on Ice with strings, and they were just kind of floating in the air. I felt like George Lucas handled jetpacks way better in the prequels and with Boba in the original trilogy. I feel like they handled jetpacks better with Mando in Mando's show. So it felt like there was no excuse not to make it nicer here, so to speak. I didn't like the way it was visually on the screen. I think they could have done a lot better job with that.
I think there were different parts in the episode where they did do a little bit better, but that particular scene that you're talking about was pretty rough.
Yeah, there was a scene, I think Mando used his jetpack to hop up onto the droid with his darksaber. That looked great. It looked like fluid. Natural, yeah, it looks great. And it didn't seem like he was, held by a wire, so to speak. Again, nitpicking, but that was one of the big things that rubbed me the wrong way.
The moment was cool, though. Both of them just shooting up.
Yes, the moment was very cool. I would totally agree with that. It's just the visual of it.
The execution
took away a little bit.
No, I get you.
Once they hit the ground, though, it was awesome. We got everything we needed from Boba. Like when we were saying, earlier in the season, oh, we saw Boba do this in Mando. Why isn't he doing it? And everything came out in this episode. Boba used his guns. Boba used his kneecaps with the missiles. Boba used his rocket on the droid.
He did a little kick thing too.
Yeah, he did. It was like
high knee, like bro.
Pizzazz,
That was my favorite part.
Throwing it out there. So we got. I almost wonder if that's why they toned him down early on, is so that when we saw this stuff, it couldn't have been, topped early on, so to speak.
It could be that, or I also, now that we have the full story, I think he wasn't putting up much of a fight earlier on because he was still in the tank, the Bacta tank treatment.
Could be.
He was still healing, so that could be a thing.
But basically, everything that you wanted from Boba, I'm pretty sure he did everything he possibly could in this episode as far as weapons. I think he used them all.
Mm-hmm.
Mando even used his whistling birds.
Yep, that was a really cool thing to see too. I still remember when we were watching it for the first time, Sarah was like, yeah, when she saw that happen on screen. It was like watching sports or something. Something really cool happened. But so those are kind of my likes and dislikes. One of the things that I noticed, I wasn't sure if you guys had noticed this. When Boba shot his rocket, and there's like the sand smoke, everything's clearing. A big thing of Star Wars is the music. And the music that played right after the droids like show back up, like they're not dead, that music was very, very reminiscent of Kylo Ren's theme song. It was like just different octaves. And I was like, there's no way he can show up. I don't even know if he's a thing at this point. So it was very weird to me that they chose that style of music for that part of it. Because like in The Last Jedi, when Snoke is, like holding Rey up in the air, we get the Emperor's theme song. And we learn later that Snoke was controlled by the Emperor. So it totally makes sense. But here, it was kind of weird to hear that, knowing that there's no way Kylo had anything to do with it. I don't know if you guys noticed that music tidbit, but maybe now if you go back and see the scene, you'll hear it.
I didn't notice it the first time, but when you told me and we watched it the second time, I could pick up on it then.
It's not like, oh, it's only Kylo Ren's song for like 2 seconds. It's quite a bit. So very interesting take there. Okay. So my first conversation piece that I have for you guys. So when the towns, not I should say that.
And I don't know these questions, so this will be off the cuff.
No,
I don't either.
I didn't tell either of them. I feel like my best work is when I don't tell people stuff. So I like this. I should preface who I'm talking about. So like the leaders of the sectors, they're people that are in the town. So like when Boba sends his groups out to the different sectors to watch what's going on, we see the Gamorreans die. We see Santon getting pummeled.
Football tackled. Full on.
Do you guys think it was a little bit odd that he didn't die? The biker gang, well, the biker gang I can understand a little bit more because they'd cover, but Santon had almost dozens of people attacking him. How do you feel about Santon basically I want to almost call it plot armor this whole episode?
I'm good with it. He's a Wookiee, so that was my first thought.
That's
I mean, I could understand when he was getting like dogpiled that was tough, but in the back of my head, I was like, oh, he's a Wookiee. He's a Wookiee, so if he got out of this, I would buy it.
I think it probably would have been better if maybe one of the biker gang people didn't make it. We saw at least 2 or 3 of them get shot. And there's kind of the 2 main people that they focus on, right? There's the girl with the bangs who are too short. And then there's the guy with like the red eye. Those are kind of the 2 that they focus on the most. I feel like the one dude with like the blondish, orangish hair with like the white pleather jacket, he just doesn't look like he belongs to that group. He looks like he's trying so hard. I would have been more than okay if he got let go.
It's like we had these notions before the episode. Oh, if someone's gonna die, please be this person.
In terms of Santon, I feel like the shock value of seeing him return, okay, there's shock value there, but it might have been a more power move if we saw him actually get up from being piled with all these Trandoshans on him. Like if we actually saw that moment of him rising up with all these guys and ripping them off, that would have been really cool. But it would have taken away the shock factor of seeing that he's okay. So I guess it's kind of just a pick your poison kind of thing for that.
Yeah, I guess it kind of almost has to add to the lore of Wookiees for me, because I felt like he would have either been imprisoned, like taken prisoner by the group, or killed. I personally didn't see that he was gonna make it out of it, but especially after we saw the Gamorreans die, I was like, oh, okay, they're willing to let people die. Is Santon gonna be one of them?
I was sad they got let go.
We find out that no, he's not willing to die, so to speak. What is your guys' opinion on Bane? Do you think he's dead? And the reason why I ask is because after Boba left him, we heard some beeping going on. Do you think that's some sort of life support for him?
Can I ask you, because you guys actually know more about him than I do, does his species have like weird organs and stuff where maybe the center of his chest doesn't necessarily mean his heart?
That I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is that his tubes make it so that his body can still breathe even if he can't.
Mm-hmm.
So like
The
if
air goes like directly into his lungs.
So there's no choking him out.
Right. So do you think we're going to see him again, or do you think he's done?
So my initial thoughts when that happened was that he's dead, and I was kind of bummed selfishly as a Star Wars fan because I love the character so much.
I was too.
Yeah. And the beeping, as I did notice the beeping, my first thought was that it was some sort of tracker.
Kind of like a beacon of come get me, or
yeah, or something like that, but I couldn't quite figure out exactly what purpose that might serve. But then after I thought about it for a while and, did the internet search and read reviews and all that stuff, because I do that, a lot of people are saying that was some sort of signal that maybe there was only a malfunction in his machinery and that he's not necessarily dead per se. So I think now I'm leaning more towards to the fact that he's gonna make it.
I did not hear the beeping. I somehow missed that both times I watched it. But with as many times as we've seen people who we thought that were dead and they really weren't, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not dead.
Right.
I didn't notice it the first time. I noticed it the second time I watched it. So,
well, they lingered on that shot for a long time, and like I said before, that usually means they're trying to get you to see something. Because I did notice that beeping when the shot first came on, and I thought that was just part of his whatever, his get up. But then it lingered and lingered, and I was like, that beeping might be important then.
Yeah, I know what you mean by like it lingered there for a minute. And at first, it was like when I first watched it, the lingering for me was my sorrows of I may never see Cad Bane again, and this was like my favorite representation of Cad Bane. Yeah. But hopefully it's not like the prequels where, Darth Maul was killed and we never heard from him again until many, many years later. Hopefully, if Cad Bane is still around, we kind of know relatively soon. So I hope he comes back. I think we can all agree that we hope he comes back because he was so cool. My last little question here, honestly, was when I first heard it, it was my major turnoff for this episode because I didn't know how to interpret it. I was talking about when we were discussing the episode at the very end, Boba and Fennec are in the street and they're talking, and Boba says, maybe we're not cut out for this. And Fennec says, well, then who's going to take care of it, kind of a thing. And then soon after, we see the Marshal is still alive. So my question to you is, do you think Boba and Fennec are going to leave and leave it to the townspeople to run Mos Espa? Or do you think he's going to have some sort of piece of this? Because if you think about it, the Marshal could run the whole thing. The biker gang has plenty of people to, do the sectors. They can have eyes on everything to make sure the town is safe. There's so many things that they could do without Boba and Fennec. What do you think about that? Because when I heard it, I was like, was this show for nothing? Because the whole thing was about Boba being in charge. And now that we have this little sound of doubt in his voice of wanting to be a part of it, it made me feel unsettled.
That is a really good question. My two immediate thoughts. The first one is I think Freetown still needs some sort of marshal, like him leaving. There's nobody there now because I don't know if you know, but his deputy got all shot up. So
that's one character that died that we wanted to.
Yes. So there's that. So I think there's a good chance that he'll kind of maybe go back, or to our earlier question, he's probably pretty mad at Cad Bane for messing up his arm. So he could get back to full health, and then he could very easily, in true Western fashion, going back to the subgenres here, could be like, I'm going to get that guy for messing up my arm. So that would be a movie or show I would 100% watch.
So assuming that Cad Bane is still alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was cool because the seeing the modder there. My first thought was that he's going to get some mechanical arm that's just going to make his arm quicker at drawing, and it's just going to be like
RoboCop.
Yeah, like an action figure. But yeah.
What do you think?
So I hadn't really thought about Freetown until you just mentioned it in terms of like who's going to watch over that. But in terms of Mos Espa, right? I don't think that Boba and Fennec are going to leave. I feel like
I don't either. I didn't really
feel like you're maybe reading too far into it when they say that. I think it's just more or less of him referencing at that point. That's when everybody was bowing down to him because they were happy that the town was destroyed but safe, right? I feel like that's more what he was referencing rather than being a crime lord, and I really don't see the Marshal being a crime lord. I feel like that kind of fits Boba's character a bit more in terms of, that way he's still kind of doing maybe not necessarily legal things, but so he's getting that kind of what do you call that? Hobby, thrill, whatnot. I could see him being the new mayor, the Marshal being the new mayor of the town because the mayor is now gone. I don't see the Twi'lek being the new mayor, I can tell you that. I feel like Freetown seemed pretty independent on their own, especially if the Pikes are taken care of and gone. I don't know that they necessarily need a mayor just for that town. I feel like the bartender dude who's like bald minus the one little ponytail, and
I want him to be the Marshal.
I could see him maybe tag teaming that role with the short girl that's got the weird hat who was trying to make peace between the biker gang and Freetown. She was the one who went up on the roof with the biker girl. We've seen her a couple times. She was the one who
I forgot about her. Yeah.
She was the one who first checked on the Marshal when he got shot down, right? And then she was in this episode again too. I feel like they're building her to be a strong enough character that between her and the bartender guy, they got the town covered. Those are just kind of my initial thoughts on Freetown. I hate that name, but that's what it is.
You're Freetown. Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
That's like saying, "Hi, hungry, I'm dad." You just don't call yourself that.
Yeah, I would like to see Freetown have the bartender be the guy in charge. I think that'd be really cool. The reason why I think that this stuff is plausible is because maybe the point of this show was to get rid of crime in the city, like not necessarily needing a crime lord to run it, whereas they're going to have a proper government and justice system, if I can talk. And that could be where the Marshal could actually rule. I don't think he needs to be a crime lord to rule if, all the pieces are in place and, nobody's corrupted. Everybody's fighting for a safe town, so to speak. Now that they've pushed the bad stuff out, maybe they can lay groundwork for letting the town move forward and being at peace.
And Safe Town will be their new name.
Yeah, Safe Town.
Safe Town and Freetown.
It'll be great.
Yep.
You guys are awful.
Hey, the simplicity's there. So yeah, that was the episode. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I will say this, some final thoughts, and it fits because it's at the end of the episode. What a plot twist that the Boba Fett theme is actually singing Boba Fett's name.
I loved that. I forgot to mention that in my recap of things I liked or didn't like. That was awesome.
I don't think they did that in previous episodes. I think they just did that in this one.
I think so.
But I thought that was cool.
I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It made me want to go back, which I haven't at this point. It made me want to go back to see if like the first episode was as distorted as possible, and then it got more and more clear. I don't know if it is. I just think maybe that was something that they did, but it'd be cool to kind of go back and see if that's something that they did. But very cool, yeah, to actually.
And I thought it was cool when they did the credits. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine.
On the credits, when they had the actors' names, it showed concept art with them. I thought that was a nice touch.
I didn't notice that. I was too mesmerized by the concept art.
I love watching that concept art at the end of these episodes. Something I look forward to.
It's interesting because there's actually something shown in the concept art that was a little different approach than the episode. The one that I saw in particular was when the droid was pinning them in the city. The Pike leaders were standing right behind it, like ordering it to do stuff. So
yeah.
It made me wonder why they didn't do it. I don't know. It might have been pretty cool to see it.
Want to go back a little bit in the last episode. One of the pieces of concept art was when Ahsoka woke up Mando. He actually fired a shot out of his blaster, and Ahsoka like used the Force to like move it away. I thought that was interesting.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's like, is it budget purposes or what? These are good ideas.
It's just the creative process. They come up with things, and then they actually start rolling the cameras and seeing what's feasible and what's not, and all that.
Yeah. So this show has come to a close. I think the next project is Kenobi that will be coming out. We did get a release date, which is May 25th.
And not May 4th for some reason.
I heard what the reason was. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, geez, please. It's the anniversary of the original film. That's why they did it. Because myself, I absolutely hate it when people say this is coming out in May, and then it's the last possible time in May. I would rather them say beginning of April. June. Sorry, got my months. I'm going backwards.
April would be nice too, though.
April would be way better. But yeah, they said.
I think there's that, and I think Moon Knight's their next show, and if they did it on May 4th, it would overlap, which I don't think is a problem. But I'm sure that some marketing team thinks it is. So,
well, here's the thing: Marvel like put out shows where like there'd be a show, there'd be a week off, and then the next show, a week off, and so on and so forth. I think it's slowed down a little bit now, but man, if we could get that for Star Wars. I wish we could. So yeah, we can look forward to Kenobi coming out in May. I'm
so stoked.
Yeah, me too. We'll be back here covering it. I'm excited to see Ewan McGregor back. I'm excited to see Hayden back. It's going to be a great time. I don't know how many episodes it is, but I'm sure it'll be great. Any other thoughts before we close it out?
Good.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks for hanging out with us throughout this series. Hopefully you guys have been able to stick with us throughout the season. If you like these discussions, we will be back for Kenobi, as we said. So make sure to turn on those notifications. That way you are notified when those drop. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the episode and your thoughts on the series as a whole. What'd you think of Boba? And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.